Hello and welcome to a training session for polling staff for the May 2021 elections. By way of introduction, my name is Holly Sykes and I'm Head of Service for Elections at Cornwall Council and also a Deputy Returning Officer. Other key staff to be aware of are the Local Returning Officer for Cornwall, which is Kate Canally, and the Electoral Services Managers Sharon Richards and Jeff Waxman. On May the 6th, we are going to the polls for 3 separate elections. This is the Police and Crime Commissioner, the Unitary Council elections and the Town and Parish elections. As you are taking part and listening to this training recording, you will be supporting the delivery of the election as either a presiding officer or a polling clerk. You will be vital in the delivery of the elections on May the 6th. It is essential that you act impartially at all times. You comply with the instructions issued by the returning officer. You ensure the secrecy and the security of the ballots and ensure voters are able to cast their vote safely by making sure that public health advice regarding face coverings, social distancing and good hygiene is observed throughout the day. If you have any problems or any doubts, you can either call the elections office or make contact with your inspector for your region. There are a number of staff that you will see during the day of polling. That will be the presiding officer, the poll clerk and also the polling station inspectors. The polling station inspectors have responsibility for a number of polling stations, so we'll be visiting you throughout the day. As part of the day, you need to consider all public health guidance. Be polite and professional and understand the process for issuing ballot papers. We also ask that you dress appropriately. In respect of coronavirus, this has added an extra element to polling day and the entire election. When welcoming voters, you need to ensure that they are made aware of the public health requirements, such as social distancing and face coverings, and also encouraging those attending the polling station to clean their hands on entry and exit. You should also support the voter in how they navigate through the polling station, managing the voters to enable them to deliver their vote safely. There are specific duties of the presiding officer, such as instructing a police officer to remove someone from the polling station, asking the prescribed questions, and limiting the number of accredited observers present at any one time. Staying safe on polling day is really important. We will be providing extra training for everyone taking part in the election the week commencing the 19th of April. We are asking that you ensure that you attend at least one of these sessions to get a good understanding of what your roles and responsibilities are, but also how you can maintain your own safety and those around you. Most of these safety procedures you will have become accustomed to when visiting supermarkets or just delivering your daily life over the last year. But please attend one of those sessions where you will learn more. You will also be provided within your polling station pack with an FAQ in regards to how we will support you on polling day. This will take you through a number of scenarios to ensure that you can answer the questions, and if you can't, you'll be able to have contact details of those people who can support you. The public health principles that we must follow throughout the whole election period are maintaining the social distancing, cleaning hands, avoiding the touching of your face and wearing a face covering. No one should attend the polling station if they are unwell or symptomatic with COVID-19. The presiding officer and their staff should remind and encourage electors to follow the public health guidance, so to maintain safety for everyone. The presiding officer and their staff should not prevent a voter from entering the station and voting if not wearing a face covering. Certain things to think about on the day. If you haven't got booths or something is damaged, we will provide contact details for Dash, who will support you in order to bring these vital pieces of equipment to you. So considering the polling station and how it can be set up and the layout, we are asking that you attend the polling station between the 24th and the 29th of April to undertake a risk assessment. You'll be provided with training during the COVID-19 training to ensure that you are able to undertake this, and you will be supported through the process. This will all be described and explained to you as part of that training package. So considering the polling station and what it's going to look like, this may look very different from what you have experienced before, but we will be considering all the underlying principles that we've all lived over the last year in order to make this as safe as possible. So public health advice in setting up a polling station should include, where possible, utilising a one-way system throughout the station, hand sanitisers in prominent positions at the entry and exit of the station, social distancing markers in place, additional public health advice signage, and allowing for adequate ventilation with windows open where possible. Polling booths positioned at a safe distance apart and tables arranged in a way that allows a safe distance between the voter and the polling station staff. When setting up the station, remember that the layout must work for the voter. You need to consider the route that the voter will have to walk through in order to achieve them making their vote. Ballot boxes will need to be positioned in an accessible but safe place. The presiding officer must be able to clearly see this at all times, and the voter must pass by it on the route from booths to the door whilst maintaining social distancing. You need to consider the setup of the polling station and where the agents, including candidates and other election agents and observers, can be positioned so that they can oversee proceedings, but not getting too close to put the voters off or breach social distancing requirements. At the discretion of the presiding officer, tellers can be within the building area that has been hired but must adhere to social distancing and the capacity of the venue. They cannot demand information from the electors. You need to consider where the best position for them would be. So would that be by the door at a social distanced place, so not to cause any concerns to those that are trying to enter the building to vote. This is a picture of another possible layout. You can refer to Appendix 11 of your polling station handbook in regards to setting up the polling station. When visiting the polling station between the 24th and the 29th of April, you need to consider the layout, how the pathway will work, how it will be accessible, and the social distancing measures in place. You need to check where all the notices would go, including the additional public health notices, to ensure they are in prominent positions. On the day, you need to check that you've got all the necessary equipment ready for the day to work, including the pencils and the cleaning equipment. In respect to the equipment, enlarged ballot papers, magnifiers and tactile voting devices will also be available. Anyone who enters the polling station should be reminded about the need to follow public health guidance, including maintaining social distancing, good hand hygiene, and the requirement to wear a face covering unless exempt whilst inside. Observation is an important part of the election process that should not be obstructed in any way. All those who attend a polling station for the purposes of observing proceedings should follow the public health measures in place throughout. Accredited observers and Electoral Commission representatives will have photographic ID issued by the Electoral Commission, as shown on this slide. Accredited observers and Commission representatives do not need to give advance warning of their visit. However, they may have contacted the returning officer in advance to advise that they will be observing in your area. Accredited observers and Commission representatives do need to provide you with the identification when they come into the station. Silver badges will have a start and an expiry date, as well as a reference number above the picture. To ensure the safe and effective conduct of the poll, presiding officers are entitled to limit the number of accredited observers present inside a polling station for a specified time, such as for 30 minutes or 60 minutes. If, due to the number of electors waiting to vote or the number of observers already present, there is a risk to the safe and effective conduct of proceedings, you may need to temporarily limit the number of observers and/or the amount of time observers can stay in the polling station to ensure that there is sufficient room to maintain social distancing, maintain capacity, and the poll can proceed effectively. However, you cannot bar all observers from the entire process, only to limit the number of observers present at any one time. When such is taken, this should be recorded in a polling station log. Further guidance can be found at the Electoral Commission website, Resources for Electoral Administrators. Customer care. We must ensure that the voter feels comfortable on their experience when voting, so that they will participate regularly. They should all receive a consistent level of service. Being positive and empathetic can often help to diffuse difficult situations. Make sure that you do not lead voters to vote in a specific way when offering assistance. The language used to assist or give instructions to voters in polling stations should be English. The returning officer may have provided instructions or guidance in alternative language or formats depending on the requirements within the community. The presiding officer should be familiar with what resources are available and provide these when appropriate. For example, a voter may have low levels of literacy or may have a question that falls outside what is covered by the notices. In those circumstances, if polling station staff are able to provide information in a language spoken by the voter, assistance in a language other than English may be provided. The electoral rules must be followed. Refer to the polling station handbook if you are in doubt, or call the elections office. Public health guidelines should be followed, but you must allow all electors to vote. Ensuring access for all voters, what you can do. COVID considerations. Be mindful of the face coverings and all the other things that will be in place to support the safe delivery of the election and polling day, such as maintain social distancing, clean and regular hand washing, and avoiding touching your face. If you are assisting a voter, you must maintain social distancing and communicate clearly at an agreed distance. When visiting the polling station, you need to consider the access to ensure that everyone will have the ability to access the building to vote, and where necessary, ramps, etc. will be provided at the entrance and exit points. Disabled voters or those who cannot read or write may ask for assistance to mark the ballot paper. presiding officer can do this, or a companion. Polling station staff may consider removing their face covering if they feel comfortable to do so while they're speaking to or providing assistance to someone who relies on lip reading, but should make sure they remain socially distanced whilst doing so, and to replace the face covering immediately afterwards. Companions of voters with disabilities must be 18 years or over and either a close relative or a qualified elector. A companion can assist no more than 2 voters. Secrecy of the ballot must be ensured. Enlarged copies of the ballot paper should be available to be taken to the polling booth with a voter to assist them marking the actual ballot paper. A person who is registered as an elector or entered on the list of proxies cannot be refused a ballot paper, so cannot be excluded from voting on the grounds of mental incapacity. Ensuring access for all voters and supporting people with sight loss. Disabled voters or those who cannot read or write may ask for assistance to mark the ballot paper. The presiding officer can do this, or a companion. The presiding officer can remove the sticky tape at the back of the template and affix it to the ballot paper for the tactile voting device to support someone in using this. If you have concerns over how to use a tactile voting device, we can provide extra information on this. There are further videos to support you in how to support people with learning disabilities when they attend a polling station. Who can and cannot vote? You need to use the electoral register and the corresponding number list. Who is eligible to vote at the polling station in the PCC election and the local government election? This slide outlines who can vote. Those who can vote is those electors with no letters or dates before their name, electors who are 18 years of age or over on the day of the election, electors with a G or L before their name, electors who have registered anonymously will have an N instead of their name. The following electors must not be given a ballot paper in the polling station. Electors who will not be 18 years of age until after polling day. Electors with an A before their name, postal voters. Electors with an E before their name, overseas peers. And electors with an F before their name, overseas electors. Issuing the ballot papers. The aim of this slide is to summarise the voting process and explain the corresponding number list and the unique identifying mark and the official mark. Marking the register and the corresponding lists, you need to ask the elector to confirm their name and address, mark elector's elector number in the register, call out the name and elector number of the elector, and enter the elector number on the corresponding number lists. Do not write the elector number on the ballot paper. In regards to the ballot papers, these need to open up fully so the whole paper is visible, and you will then see the official mark, the ballot paper number, and the unique identifying number, which is the UIN. This is a ballot paper, and you can see it's pre-printed and on the list. So all you'll need to write on it is the elector number next to the relevant ballot paper number. Do not write the elector number on the ballot paper. You can check the ballot papers bear the unique identifying mark on the back. You can see the example here. The aim of this slide is to provide a demonstration of how to mark the register consistently and accurately. An example of a register marked for elector number 414 and 416. You need to use a ruler to draw the line. Mistakes can be made as a result of poor quality or wobbly marks. Be especially careful to accurately mark the register where there are family members with the same surname. Always ask for the full name and address unless you are dealing with an anonymous elector, even if the elector has presented you their poll card. Poll cards are not needed to vote, except for an anonymous elector, and even when they are presented, the elector's name and address should still be asked for. Marking the register. When an elector has been removed from the register recently, it shows on the printed copy with the word elector removed against their elector number. Tendered votes. You will have an envelope containing the pink tendered ballot papers. There are 25 allocated to each station. Anonymous electors. They must have a poll card and they will have N on the register marked against that part. The name and address must not be called out, and you must mark the register by their poll number as usual. You can refer to the polling station handbook, which gives you more information on how to deal with an anonymous elector voting procedure. The poll card should be returned to the elector to protect their privacy. The poll clerk should ask the voter to place their poll card on the table in front of them so that the poll clerk does not have to handle it. Alternatively, the voter can be asked to hold the card up in front of the poll clerk. It is of utmost importance to maintain the secrecy of the vote. Make sure the voters go to the polling booths individually so that their right to a secret vote is protected. No other person is allowed to accompany a voter to a polling booth unless a voter who is disabled or unable to read has requested assistance to vote. Marking the ballot papers for the local government election. The top of the ballot paper gives the instructions on how to complete the ballot papers. Some voters may still find the instruction unclear. They may ask, for example, to have their favoured candidate or party pointed out to them, or ask where they should mark their mark on the ballot papers. In these circumstances, the presiding officer should read out the instructions printed at the top of each ballot paper and the list of candidates in the order that they appear on the ballot papers. You can explain that the voters can only vote for the maximum number of candidates allowed on the ballot paper according to the instructions. Marking the Police and Crime Commissioner election ballot. At a Police and Crime Commissioner election, where there are more than two candidates, the Supplementary vote electoral system is used. Under this system, voters can vote for a first and second choice candidate they want to elect. The ballot paper will list all the candidates standing in the police area, and voters will vote for their first choice candidate by marking an X in the first choice column, and for their second choice by marking an X in the second choice column. If, however, there are only two candidates standing, the Police and Crime Commissioner will be elected under the first past the post electoral system. In this case, voters will be asked to place an X in the box next to the candidate of their choice on the ballot paper. If, however, there are only two candidates standing, the Police and Crime Commissioner will be elected under the first past the post electoral system. In this case, will be asked to place an X in the box next to the candidate of the choice on the ballot paper, as explained again on this slide. If a voter asks you how to vote, it's really important to maintain your professionalism and impartiality when talking to voters. If asked by a voter how to vote or what to do, staff can explain. The top of the ballot paper gives the instructions on how to complete the ballot paper. Some voters may still find the instructions unclear. They may ask, for example, to have their favoured candidate or party pointed out to them. In these circumstances, the presiding officer should read out the instructions printed at the top of the ballot paper and the list of parties and/or candidates in order that they appear on the ballot paper. So what happens? There are certain scenarios on this for you to think about. We'll go through a couple. A voter spoils a ballot paper. If the voter spoils their ballot paper, they must be issued a replacement, and the presiding officer must account for any spoilt papers on the ballot paper account. A voter has nominated a proxy, but the voter arrives before the proxy. If the voter arrives before the nominated proxy, then the proxy cannot vote and must be told of the situation. Electors or proxies marked as having been issued with a postal vote cannot be given an ordinary ballot paper in the polling station. However, an elector or proxy who claims never to have applied for a postal vote but is listed as a postal voter is entitled to receive a tendered ballot paper at the polling station at any time. Alternatively, up until 5 p.m. on polling day, they must be issued with a replacement postal ballot pack, but only by the returning officer at the elections office. The presiding officer should refer the elector or proxy to the returning officer for advice on this procedure. You will have details of all this within your pack. People with medical emergencies and those whose occupation, service or employment means they cannot go to the polling station in person can apply for an emergency proxy. Provided the emergency occurred, became aware that they were going to be away on polling day after 5 p.m. on 6 working days before the poll. Emergency proxies can be granted up until 5 p.m. on polling day. If the voter has arrived at the correct polling station, then contact Electoral Services, as there may have been a clerical error when completing the register. For further detail on the above, please see the Commission's Polling Station Handbook. There are certain prescribed questions that are able to be asked if there is concern about the eligibility of a person who applies for a ballot paper. If there is a concern, ask these questions and record the event in the polling station log. You must not ask any other questions about the qualification to vote other than those prescribed here. Postal votes. Voters can hand in their postal votes at any polling station with the relevant electoral area. Returned postal ballot packs must be stored, sealed and labelled as instructed. Those collected will be returned with a ballot box at close of poll. It's important to always maintain and follow the guidance of public health around washing your hands, sanitising your hands, avoiding touching your face when handling the postal votes. If a person has spoilt or lost or never received their postal ballot paper, it can be replaced until 5 p.m. at New County Hall on that day. Some electors have opted to have postal votes for just certain types of elections. In this case, they will have been issued with a postal vote for the PCC elections and an ordinary poll card for the local elections. You should consult your postal vote list, which will indicate which election they have been issued a postal vote for. If only the PCC, they should be allowed to vote in the local elections in person. Clerical errors. If there are any clerical errors, these need to be registered on the errors sheet. You need to make a clear note of any person applying to register to vote at your station who does not appear on your register. The Electoral Commission will want to know afterwards. The close of poll and the procedures that need to be followed. It's rare that you get queues at 10 p.m. in the evening, but there could be a queue even of only a few people. If someone arrived at the polling station in time, it is their right to cast their vote. It's also worth considering that you may have more queues this time round due to the COVID implications and social distancing, and the fact that you potentially can have less people going into your polling station. Electors in a queue at any time during the day should be reminded to maintain social distancing whilst in the queue and to wear a face covering in the polling station unless exempt. If there is a lengthy queue at any point in the day, particularly in the last couple of hours before the close of poll, polling station staff should contact the election office to discuss the situation and agree how to deal with it. Electors must be in the queue for the polling station they have been allocated to. If they are in the queue for a different polling station in the same polling place, or at the wrong polling place altogether, unless they get to the right one and are in the queue there by 10 p.m, they will be unable to vote. Staff should manage a queue at the close of poll by either bringing all the electors in the room or building, if the capacity and social distancing allows, and closing the door so no one else can join the queue after 10 p.m. Or if the room or building isn't large enough to ensure that the voters and staff can maintain social distancing, a member of the polling station should stand socially distant at the end of the queue to mark it and explain to anyone arriving that the polls closed at 10 p.m, and by law they cannot vote. The close of poll. The presiding officer should seal the ballot box and begin to complete the paperwork and pack up the polling station with the polling clerks. Should a candidate or polling agent wish to affix seals to the ballot boxes, they should be reminded to continue to maintain social distancing whilst doing so and to clean their hands before and afterwards. There are some important instructions this year. You need to take the time to ensure that all the documents are placed into the correct packets and are signed as appropriate. The ballot paper account now goes on top of the ballot box. This is a change to previous practice. No unused ballot paper account, just label, up the sack and put the unused in. In regards to data protection, poll cards need to be disposed of securely. You must take your ballot box and sacks to the location advised to you in your instructions. Be sure to have read these and know where you are expected to go. Close of poll, green sack content. Take time to ensure that all documents are placed in the correct pockets and are signed as appropriate. Yellow envelope containing marked registers and list of postal proxies will be in the green sack, along with the A5 white envelope containing claim forms and a list of register errors. The black sack contents. This contains all the other packets, stationery, etc. that are not in the green sack. But please, no rubbish. You need to dispose of this safely in the bins. After the close of poll, it's essential that the ballot paper accounts are completed accurately. The ballot paper accounts must be kept with the ballot boxes, and you should ensure all documents placed in the correct packets are signed as appropriate. The poll clerks can assist with packing up the station to allow the presiding officer to do these important tasks. The Election Day Survey. The Electoral Commission plan to issue a survey to polling station staff in order to gather feedback about experience on polling day, particularly in relation to the challenges posed by the pandemic. We would be grateful if you could complete this to support the way that we work in the future. For additional information, you can contact the elections team, with the contact details will be on all the information that you've had provided. Regarding the ballot box, you must write your ballot box number on the top right-hand side of your check sheet. And for further information, you can go to these particular areas. Thank you for taking part in this training, and I appreciate that it's quite a lot to take in, but we hope that you can use this as a resource and that you can listen back to it and use it as an aid memoir on the days leading up to the election, supporting your risk assessment work and at the actual polling day. I look forward to meeting many of you at the COVID training, which will support the delivery of a safe and secure election. Many thanks.